What's up guys, my name is Adrian Sjoblom, and today I'm about to show you guys 3 effects that I made in the Lance Cruz High School Charity Week promotional video. These 3 effects, I'm going to be teaching you step by step how I made them and how you can make them in After Effects. Let's watch what we're going to be making. Alright, so what we're going to want to do to start this project is we want to make a new project and we want to import the footage that we're going to be using. So to import footage, you can either double click in this project panel or go File, Import, File right here. But I'm just going to double click in here because that's just a fast and easy way that I go. So before I go any deeper in this tutorial, I want to first explain what keyframing is if you don't already know. So keyframing is a start point and an end point of any smooth transition. It can be for position, to move an object, rotation, to move the rotation of an object, or to change values of effects like percentages and amounts. So let's take a look here. In this blank composition, we have a square in the top left of this blank composition. Let's say we want to move this square to the bottom right of here during this second long span. What we can do is we can go to this shape layer's position, which if you bring down its variables underneath, you can go to transform, and down under there you will find stuff like position, scale, rotation, or opacity, and all these can be keyframed. So let's say in the start, we want to keyframe this square and start it in this top left. We can put the square in the top left and click this stopwatch. As you can see right down here, we get a keyframe and we get this controller to use keyframes, and the stopwatch turns blue, so you know that this position is animated. So we can go down to 1 second, and all you really got to do is just move the square down to the bottom right. And as you can see, it automatically adds another keyframe. So if you go and play this back, during that second span, the square moves down to the bottom right. You also could have done this by going to this second and then changing the variables down here. You can change the X position and then change the Y position to the bottom right. And you can play it back and it will do the same thing. You can also do this with stuff like opacity, scale, or rotation. So let's say you want to change the opacity from the start to be 100 so you can perfectly see it, but then at the end of a second, you want it to be completely see-through so you cannot see it at all. So what you can do is go to the beginning, press the stopwatch for opacity, and that will enable the keyframes. Go down to the second mark, and then change the opacity to 0%. And when you play it back, the square slowly disappears during that second span. And I also said that you can use this for effects, not only just transform properties. So what we're first going to want to do is we want to make a new composition. A composition is like its own project because it has its own timeline and own layers. So to make a new composition, you can go on the top left, click Composition, New Composition, and here you get all the settings that you can change before making the composition. Like up here, you can change the name, and let's change the name to In Camera Transition, because that's the first effect we're going to do. Let's like the duration of this composition about 10 seconds. It only really needs to be 10 seconds if that. And then the background doesn't really matter, but we'll just make it black. You got to make sure the width and height match the width and height of your footage, which it does. And the frame rate, 30 frames is a good frame rate. And press OK. And now you have your own composition with this timeline that is 10 seconds long, has the correct dimensions, and has a black background. So as you can see in our first effect, we have a drone shot showing Lance Cruz High School, and then it swipes to the right of the Charity Week poster, and it swipes down to what LCHS stands for. So first we have to add our clips to our timeline and kind of line them up. Honestly, adding footage to your timeline is pretty easy. You can look over to your left and look at all your imported footage, and as you click through them, it shows you a little thumbnail of what the footage is. So as you can see right here, drone shot of Lance Cruz, that's our first shot. So you can click and hold and drag it down to our timeline down here, and it will automatically add the clip. And now let's look for our second one, which is the Charity Week sign, which is right here, which that looks good. And then you can add it down to our timeline. You can add it below or on top of the drone shot. It doesn't really matter. I like to keep it on top to stack them, just to help myself organize. Import our third clip, which is the LCHS swipe, where the camera swipes down and shows LCHS. So in-camera transitions requires a lot of pre-planning. You have to know exactly what transitions you want and when. So as you can see in this final clip, the drone shot swipes right to the Charity Week sign that starts off with a swipe right and ends with a swipe down. And then the next clip with the LCHS and what it stands for, it starts off with it also swiping down. So you have to know what transitions you're going to want to use with what clips and when you're going to want to use them, so that when you go back in editing, you don't have a mistake where you're swiping down to the next clip and the next clip is swiping up. It just will not look good at all. So that's why you have to pre-plan so much when you're doing in-camera transitions. So we want to start off with the drone shot of Lance Cruz. But as you can see on the top of all these layers, we have the LCHS swipe. So we're going to want to move that to the side for now, and also want to move the Charity Week sign to the side for now, because we want to start off the video with the Lance Cruz High School shot of the drone going around it, and then right here it swipes to the Charity Week sign. Now if we just link these clips up together, just like this, and we play this back, go. You will see it's not good, because obviously I started the recording before I did my movement, because it's really difficult to start the recording when you do the movement, and it might not even start at the right time. So we're going to have to cut this clip when I start the movement. So if we play through it, you can see that I start the movement right about here. You don't want to cut it when you start the movement. You want to cut it when I'm in the movement, because as you see in the clip before, it cuts when it's in the movement. So you want to continue that momentum to make the more seamless transition. So this Charity Week sign clip, we're going to want to cut it right when I'm in the motion, which looks like it's right about here. So to cut the clip, I can either click and drag the end of the clip to where my time indicator is, or my cursor up here, and that will cut the clip. So as you can see before, it's not playing, and then it starts when I'm in the motion. Or you can go to where you want to cut it and press Command-Shift-D or Control-Shift-D, and it will make two layers that are cut, and then you can delete the bottom layer. And now you have the footage cut right when you start the movement. So now you can sync these layers up and then take a look. As you can see, that looks not bad so far. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad so far. And also, we don't want to hear my lame sound effects in the background go. So we're going to want to turn the sound off for all these layers. By doing that, you can just click and drag by selecting all the layers, or press Control A or Command A to select them all, and then click this sound icon on the left, which can toggle on and off audio for the layers. But we're going to want to toggle them off because we don't want to hear my sound effects. So now that we have this transition looking alright so far, let's go to this final transition of the Lance Cruz High School one, where we swipe down to the ground, and then in the next one we swipe down from the ceiling. So again, if you link up both of these clips to the start and the beginning, it will not look good, because obviously I have the camera pointing right towards me, and then in the second one I haven't even started my movement. So we're going to have to do the same thing we did for the beginning of this clip, and we're going to have to trim them. So for this Charity Week sign, we're going to want to cut it right when I'm in the motion, but at a pretty low point, like about here. But you don't want to show my shoes either, because that won't look good. So I'm going to cut my clip right about here because that's like my peak of my motion and it doesn't show my shoes and everything. So by cutting this clip, I click and drag the end of it, put it to my time indicator, or I can hold Control Shift D or Command Shift D to cut it into 2 layers and then delete the top layer. Now let's do the same thing for the LCHS logo. We want to cut it right when I'm in the motion, not when I start the motion, when I'm in the motion. And I'm in the motion right about here. That right about this area looks good. So I'm gonna click and drag the end to my time indicator, and then I can link these 2 clips up and see how that looks so far. As you can see, that doesn't look bad. That doesn't look bad so far. And then at the end, I move the camera because I kind of fall over a little bit. So we're going to want to cut that out of here. So we go to the end of this movement, kind of stop it right here. Cut the clip. There we go. That looks good. So this is what we have so far. So now I'm going to try to teach you how to sell these in-camera transitions. So as we've seen, these transitions don't look bad. They look alright, to be honest. But from this scene, there's a big building you're looking at, and the next one, there's a girl with a hand in a school pointing. So they have no similarities. So when they cut, it's an obvious cut that you're really going to want to fix because it really doesn't sell the transition too much. An easy way that I use to sell these in-camera transitions is to add a flash right when it cuts, because the flash really brightens up the screen and helps hide that big change in position, because it's a school building and then it's a girl pointing at a board. So now we're going to add a flash at this transition. What we're going to want to do is make a new solid layer. To add a new solid layer, we can right click down at our timeline, click New Solid, or we can go up from the top left and click Layer, New Solid. Once we click that, we'll have settings of what the solid will be. We want to make a white solid that has the same dimensions as the composition, and click OK. A solid layer is just a plain layer of color. As you can see, we added a white solid, but we could have made it a black, purple, really any color. But we want to add a white flash, so we want to make it a white solid. We could either make the solid a little orange so that it's like an orange flash, almost like the sun or a light. But we're going to stick with a white flash. So to make this more of a flash and not just white covering the screen, we want to change this blend mode, which is next to the solid name. As you can see, the blend mode is at normal right now, but if we click it, then we get all these options of what we want our blend mode to be. And the blend mode add or additive, that makes it, instead of just plain white, it makes the layers under pop in a white. As you can see, it really didn't change much. That's because the opacity or transparency is at a full 100%. So it's full 100% just bright white. To change that, we can click down, go to transform to find the opacity, or you can just click on the solid and click the shortcut button T, which stands for the opacity of the layer. I memorize it by thinking T for transparency. So if we turn the opacity down, now you can see the clips under it, and you can see now that it's adding a little flash. And to add a flash, we're going to want to change the opacity of this solid to go from 0 to about 55 looks like a bright enough flash, or you could do 60, whatever your taste, whatever you're feeling. So to sell this flash effect, if we just had the solid stay at 60 opacity the whole time, you won't get that gradual increase in brightness and then hit that max point of brightness and then gradually go down, just like a flash would. But to make that, we want to keyframe the opacity. So let's go to our cut between both layers, which is right here. And if we click the stopwatch, you can see that it makes a keyframe for opacity. Right here, we can change the keyframe to whatever we want. I'm gonna say 58, no, 55. 55 fits my taste. So with the keyframe at this point, our opacity is going to be 55, but we want to gradually change it from 0 to 55. So if we go a couple frames ahead of this, maybe to where it about shows Lance Cruise, and we change the opacity to 0, it will add another keyframe. And if we watch this back, you can see it gradually changes to 50% throughout the span between the keyframes. But we don't want to keep it at 55% throughout this whole video. We want to also gradually change it back to 0 so that we're not blinded the whole time. So we can also go a couple frames after this 55% keyframe and change it to 0%. So if we play this back, you will see we get that gradual change in brightness, which creates that flash effect. Now I think that this gradually changes to 55% a little too slow, and I want a big impactful flash. So I'm going to move the 0% opacity keyframe closer so that it changes very fast to the 55% keyframe. But I want it to slowly, gradually go back to 0. I don't want that to be fast either. So if we play this back, that's looking really good. So now let's try to copy that same thing on the second transition. So over here, we can add a keyframe where the cut is and make it about, we can change it to about 33 because it's not that big of a change from like a building to inside. They're both inside and the colors look almost the same. So we can make this cut about like 31, or I'm going to do 35. 35 looks good. And then I'm going to want to do the same thing with the opacity. Keyframe it to 0, a couple frames before, and then a couple frames after this cut, keyframe it back to 0. And we can take a look at that. And this is what we have so far. So as you can see, the transitions are looking pretty nice so far, but we do have a little mistake. This is why pre-planning comes in key when you're doing in-camera transitions. As you can see, this first shot is a brown or an orangish brick wall, and then it cut changes to inside of a school where there's like a whitish yellow brick wall. And this fast cut in colors is very distinct to the eye. Let me show you an example. Pretend you're standing outside and you're looking at the bright day sky, and then it immediately changes to a black sky and immediately changes nighttime. You're obviously going to notice that it instantly changes to nighttime, but that doesn't happen on Earth. It gradually changes to nighttime. So it's very hard to see the change of brightness in the sky when you're just looking at it. It's hard to see this because the sky's brightness gradually changes to dark. It doesn't change instantly, kind of like how we have the colors changing instantly in our transition. So that's why when you're pre-planning, you're going to want to pre-plan what colors you're swiping into. As you can see in our second transition, we swipe down into a gray floor and swipe down from like a white ceiling. So this matches up pretty well because the colors aren't too different. But in our first transition, it goes from orange to a whitish yellow, which doesn't look that good to the eye, and you can obviously tell that there's a big cut right there. So to fix our mistake, we're going to want to change the coloring of this building to match the coloring of inside the building. So we're going to want to change the color of this brick wall to a whitish yellow, just how the wall inside of the school is. So with our layer there, we're going to want to change the color selected. We can go up to the top left and click Effects, Color Correction, and Tint. Or you can go in this Effects and Presets tab and search for it and type in Tint and click and drag it onto our layer. as you can see in this left panel, you get this tint option to change the colors and the amount of tint. So like we said before, we're going to want to change these colors to a whitish yellow, just how it is in the second shot. So in this tint effect, if we change the white to about a whitish yellow in here, like that, which kind of matches, but there still is a lot of black. So we can also change the black to a different color, which we can change it to not a fully bright, but a little brighter than black yellow. Now obviously we don't want our shot to just be a full yellow tint the whole time. We only want it to be this color right before it switches to the next shot. Let me tweak this to make it a little more white and not as yellow. There we go, that's looking good. So obviously we don't want our shot tinted the whole entire time. We only want it to gradually change right at the cut to the next clip. So to do that, we're going to add more keyframes. So if we go to our cut, which is right here, we can click the stopwatch to add a keyframe for the amount of tint. We can keep it at 100%. And then if we go forward just a couple frames, I would say right when the flash starts, and we change it to 0% to bring the colors back to normal, then through the span of the keyframes, it'll gradually tint to that color, as you can see right here. To look at our keyframes, if we want to change the position of them, we can click this drop down for our clip, go to Effects, and then you will see the tint effect that we have on it. Click the drop down for that, and down here you can see the keyframes for the amount of tint. But let's watch this back and see how this is looking. As you can see, that looks a lot better than it did before. This is with the tint, and this is without the tint. So this tint effect really tricks the eye because it doesn't see that instant change from a orangish color to a whitish yellow color. Instead, now it gradually changes to that whitish yellow color and not instantly. So now let's watch our clips back and see how it's looking. Now that's looking pretty good. The only thing I would change is this black hole at the end of the composition. And to fix that, we can move our cursor or our time indicator to the end of this clip, move our work area down to our time indicator, right click our work area, and press trim comp to work area. So now our composition is trimmed in to however long this work area was. If we wanted to make it shorter, we can move the work area in more, right click it, and trim comp to work area again. But we don't want it that short. We want it to be how exactly long we had it. Now let's watch this back one more time. Now boom, we are done with our first effect. So our second effect is going to be this clip right here, where Bailey throws her sweatshirt and she transforms into her sweatshirt, and her second person in gray walks away, and then her sweatshirt keeps dancing. In this effect, we're going to be using masks and a lot of keyframes. To start this effect, you want to go up to the top left, click Composition, New Composition. So to start off this effect, we want to make a new composition by going Composition, New Composition. I'm going to name it Shirt Transform. Make sure the width and height are okay, frame rate's good. I'm going to make the duration, instead of 10 seconds long, I'm going to make this one 25 seconds long, because I'm not sure how long the clips are, but I think they're a little longer. Background color black is good, and then click OK. Now we have our new composition to make our shirt transform effect. We're going to want to import our footage again, so let's find our 3 clips. the one where she turns into the shirt, the clip where she throws the shirt, and the clip where she's backpedaling. These are all separate clips that we're going to want to import. Now you could import them one by one, but I'm just going to select them all by clicking the bottom one, holding shift, clicking the top one, and then clicking dragging them into my timeline. So as you can see in the clip, it starts off with her throwing the shirt. So let's zoom out so we see more of the clips. Drag this other clip to the side to find the clip where she's throwing the shirt, which is right here. But as you can see in the first second and a half,
Start dancing.
she's just standing there. So let's cut this clip to right where she starts dancing by clicking the end and moving it right to our cursor. Also, you don't want to hear the song and me talking, so let's select all these clips and turn off the audio for them. I'm going to move this back pedal clip to the top and move it to the side just for organization, and then move the clip where she throws the shirt to the start of our composition. Now let's watch this back and see where she throws the shirt so that we can cut it. So about right here is where she throws the shirt. And if we look in our next clip, which is where she turns into the shirt, she's in about this position. So let's bring this clip over and let's do the same thing and cut this clip right when she starts moving down. So that'd be about right here. We don't want to cut the clip when she starts her movement. We want to cut the clip when she's in her movement. So it'll be about right here. We'll make a good cut. So now that we have this clip cut, we have to line it up with when. So now that we have this clip cut, we have to line it up with when the shirt is in about the same position she was in. So that is about right here. Might look good. Let's move the clip over. And let's go back and forth and see how that looks. Now I think it's a little later, so we can move this clip back in the timeline. It's a little too late, so now we can move it a little forward. And to help with these adjustments, we can zoom in so we don't make such major adjustments. Now this is looking good, but I still might want to cut it a little sooner. Maybe about like right here. That will look good. So let's watch this back. So a shot like this also needs a lot of pre-planning. So we pre-planned what transitions we were going to make and how we were going to make them. So for this exact shot, we planned that she was going to throw the shirt and then turn into the shirt. So we had to match her position to the position that the shirt was in. To do this, when she threw the shirt, I rewatched the clip back and saw what the shirt looked like. I saw that the shirt's right arm was pointed up a little bit and the shirt was bent down at about a 30-degree angle, let's say. So I had her stand at about that same angle. I had her right arm up and her left arm on the back, just how it was on the shirt. I tried to match it as best as I could so that this cut was as seamless as possible. Now let's get into the masking portion. If you watch closely on the final clip, you can see that she turns into the shirt in more of a circle form. She doesn't immediately turn into the shirt. She kind of explodes from the circle to transform into the shirt. I did that by using masks and keyframe. Masks are just to outline or cut a layer. To create a mask, you can go on the top left and click the pen tool, or you can use shapes to create shaped masks. As you can see, if we click the pen tool, we can start clicking points for masks. Like this, and this. All around her. and as you can see, it will cut out her. So if we go back to our cursor, you can see that this layer now that she turned into the shirt is cut out in this mask position that we had, and we can move it just how we want it. But obviously we don't want a triangle, we want a circled mask on top of her. Now let's go ahead and delete this mask and create a circle mask. To create a circle mask, we want to go up to the shapes next to the pen tool, but our shape right now is the rectangle. To change it to circle, you hold it down with click, go over to ellipse, and then let go of click. Now we have this kind of plus cursor to where we can start clicking and making this circle mask that we want. So let's click right in the middle of her body, hold down the click, and to make the circle grow from the beginning, and to make the circle grow from the middle of her body, you can hold down Control, which grows right in the middle of her. But we don't want the circle to be as big as this. We want it to start off small and get big. And we can do that by keyframing. So let's first make it about pretty small, but not too small. So I would say this is a good size. Let's zoom in and go to the very start of our clip. And now we will start keyframing the size of this mask to make it super small and then make it big gradually, but not for too long. To pull up the scale or position of this mask, you can click your layer, press M to pull up the mask and the mask path, and then click the stopwatch to start the keyframe. As you can see, we have a keyframe, and then as you can see, we have a keyframe, and now we're going to want to add another keyframe to where the circle is big and it shows all of her. So let's go forward a couple frames, but not too long. I would say to about maybe just 5 frames, if that. And now we're going to want to make this circle engulf the whole screen so that it's only the clip of her. To do this, we want to go back to our cursor because we don't want to make another circle mask. You can double click the circle mask and then increase the scale. But we don't want to increase the scale here, we want to increase the scale from the middle. So again, hold Control, and then that's exactly how you change the scale. And then do it until it's just a little over the whole frame, to about there. That's good. So if we watch this back, this is what we have so far, which looks pretty good. That looks really good. The thing I would change is that there's very sharp corners right here. As you can see down at this ledge is a very sharp corner on her other clone's part. There's a very sharp corner. To make this not as sharp and not as noticeable, we can change what's called the feather of this mask to make this edge gradually change. To pull up feather, click your layer and click F. That stands for feather. As you can see there, it pulls up your mask 1 and pulls up the feather. Now we don't have to keyframe this, we just want to keep it at a solid amount. You can play with the mask feather until it looks good. I think about 50 looks good for me. Now that we have our mask feathered and it's more gradually changed, we have one more problem. Her person in the gray disappears when she turns into the sweatshirt, which doesn't look good and also doesn't make sense when we rewatch it. And it really doesn't sell the effect because you can tell that she's disappearing in a circle form also. So that's why we have this backpedal clip of her just gradually backpedaling. So we're going to want to move this clip to right where she disappears, which is right here. So that's where we're going to want to start the backpedaling clip, right? But if you rewatch it, it's covering the transition we just made of her turning into the sweatshirt. To make it not cover that, we're also going to want to do masking again. So we're going to want to mask her out as she backpedals away, and then change the position so that when she backpedals off the screen, the mask is fully off the screen as well. So for this one, let's zoom out, grab the pen tool, and mask around her, but very close to her body, because in this area, that's where she is in the sweatshirt. So you don't want to put a mask out here, because then that will cover her in the sweatshirt. So draw a mask that's very close to her body. I would say about right there is good. And then continue the mask to enclose the area that you want to show. And to finish the mask, click where you started, and that finishes the mask. Now you might have to tweak the position of this mask so that it doesn't fully cover her sleeve, but this is looking alright. And we can feather this when we're done to make it blend more. So if we watch this back, you can see that it doesn't look too bad, but this mask does cover her sleeve. So we're going to want to move this mask so that it doesn't cover her sleeve. It's fine if it does for a little bit, but we don't want it to for too long. So we're also going to change the mask position for this clip over time. To pull up mask position, remember click M on the layer, which will pull up mask path. And if we click the stopwatch, we can set a keyframe for the beginning of the clip and then go forward until she's almost off the screen, and then move these mask points over to the side, and then go to where she's fully off the screen and make these mask points go fully off the screen as well. So if we watch this back, you can see that the mask is gradually going off to the side. But it doesn't look too well because, as you can see, it's fully cutting her body off. So we're going to want to add more keyframes in between where this mask isn't as close to her body. Almost something like that. As you can see right here, it almost cuts off her shoe, so let's just give her some more space. And it's cool with keyframes because as you're changing this, it's adding keyframes on whatever time you're looking at. As you can see down here, I have 6 keyframes now. And I can just keep adding keyframes, Like right here, it cuts off her body some. In this frame, it also does cut off her body some. And now let's also change the feather to make it blend a little more, but not too much. And pull up feather by clicking F on the... Now pull up feathered by clicking F on your layer. You can change the feather amount, and 18 will look good for me. That's enough. Now we can watch our clip back. And we've finished our effect. Now in this clip, she's dancing. And let's say we want to end it right when she points at the screen. So let's say right here. So to end it, we're going to have to trim our composition right when she points. And to do that, we move our work area right to where she points, which is at our time indicator. Move the work area to our time indicator, right click our work area, trim comp. And there you go, we have successfully finished our second effect.